Hafa good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This virtual public hearing will now reconvene after its morning session for the committee to hear and accept testimony on Bill number 66-36 COR, an act to amend section 58206 from Article 2 of Chapter 58, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to modifying the sunset provision of the Special Qualifying Certificate 1600 Hotel Rooms Development Program, introduced by Senator Moylan and Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes. I now invite the primary sponsor of the measure. Forgive me. Before I continue, let me recognize everyone who's in attendance. My Vice Chair, Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes, Senators Amanda Shelton, Jim Moylan, the primary sponsor of the bill, Senators Tello Taitagui, Senator Joanne Brown, and of course, with us, joining us today too, is former Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Now I will go to Senator Moylan to allow him to make his opening statement on the bill. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, colleagues, for joining me and the public for their testimonies. So our bill, as introduced by, as stated by the chairman here, it's basically we're amending a public law 32233, which was enacted back in 2014 by then Governor Eddie Calvo. It created a special qualifying certificate that allowed 1,600 hotel rooms to be built. Because at that time we had so many tourists coming to the island and we just didn't have enough rooms. So the idea was to attract the industry for new hotels to build an additional 1,600 rooms with a special qualifying certificate through GITA for these hotels. Originally, that was going well until we ran into some situations with manpower. But I also want to add, and I appreciate that Senator Dennis Rodriguez is also joining us here today too, because he was the original author of this bill that drafted it, that became the public law. And when the bill was drafted, it had a sunset provision of 5 years with a 2-year extension to be used when GITA felt fit. At that time, back in 2014, we ran into just a couple of situations where we were short in the manpower to develop these rooms. We had interest, but we just didn't have the skilled labor to build the rooms at that time. And because of that, we were able to get just 350 rooms built out of the 1,600 that we had the qualifying certificate available for. Even after the 2-year extension that GITA felt wanted to put into place, which we used, which is going to expire December of this year, well, then we ran into another situation, which is the pandemic. And now the interest is still there from what I understand. And what this bill will do is to extend the sunset provision until December 31st. So we can either achieve the goal of 1,600 rooms or within that date or sooner. So we can help with new jobs, and which would create additional taxes and basically help Guam's economy as it comes back and as our tourists grow. So it's an excellent opportunity for us to move forward on this measure and doing some construction, additional rooms, while the tourism is low, so as not to disturb our guests. So hoping this bill would have a positive impact on our community, and looking forward to the discussion on the bill today during our public hearing. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, I got kicked off for a second there. Senator Moylan, did you complete your opening statement?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Opening statements are done.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to afford your co-sponsor of the measure, Vice Speaker Barnes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me clearly now, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I also, Mr. Chair, if I may, I saw the presence of former Governor Eddie Calvo, who joined us, and I'd like to welcome him to the Zoom hearing. So thank you, former Governor, for being here also. Hafaday, Mr. Chairman, and Dunkaluna Sidruas Masi for recognizing me and having this hearing today. Over the last few weeks, Mr. Chair, I've been working closely with the author, of course, and as well as Gita and our industry stakeholders to see how we can better kickstart our economy. As such, Mr. Chair, I would like to propose to your committee an amended version of this bill, which I am grateful my co-sponsor has agreed to. These amendments were proposed by the Guam Economic Development Authority based on their meeting with industry experts. I would like to enter into the record Gita's presentation as well as their proposed amendments to the bill. If I may, Mr. Chair, I would like to share a few points about this substitute bill, just so that the panel before us can share their thoughts as well. Our initial intention was to simply extend the sunset provision to December of 2024. Upon further discussion with industry experts, we realized that 3 more years is simply too short. We extended the deadline to 10 years to allow Gita some time to better develop the final package while the current economy begins to pick up. As the economy continues on this road to recovery and as investors regain confidence in the global markets, Gita can then better market our island to prospective investors. Mr. Chair, COVID-19 has disrupted economies all over the world, but as the National Council of State Legislatures highlighted today, many states are starting to see an uptick in the state tax collections. And while this is great for the public sector, as the many stimulus packages are finally demonstrating its desired impacts, we must also consider the impact on the private sector and non-public sector employees. Furthermore, this will also open up a pipeline of higher paying jobs as many of our island's workforce are learning new skills and taking new trades. Mr. Chair, as you may know, just this week, we heard from the Guam Community College on their plan to implement boot camps on steroids in the upcoming months and fill this demand. Bills like 66-36 supplement GCC's efforts as it will create jobs, higher paying, non-minimum wage jobs that our people can benefit from. This measure, Mr. Chair, also reorganizes the definition for a hotel QC, qualifying certificate, to allow for renovations of current hotels. Over the last year, our tourism industry has been hit the hardest. Hotels are struggling to pay their bank loans. How can we expect them to pay for maintenance and upkeep in the closed net loss facility? As we look forward to reopening our tourism industry, this proposed substitute bill will allow for current hotels to also reinvest their facilities, upgrade our destination, and make Guam the world-class destination it was once. This is key as local governments and tourism industries around the world are eagerly standing by to compete and bring back a key industry. As a Democrat myself, I know it's a hard pill to follow, Mr. Chair, when we want to give our tax breaks to big businesses while our people are struggling. But a helping hand to our industry stakeholders is a small investment to bringing back our only major economic driver, especially when, according to Bill 66-36 fiscal note, there is no fiscal impact on the current appropriations. I want to point out that while giving out tax breaks for the longer term, it makes sense that it would impact the tax base. In layman's terms, these are taxes on new revenues that we currently do not tax. In turn, jobs will be created, different fees will be generated, ultimately only posing a positive impact on government revenues. The way I see it, Mr. Chair, is either we start saving tourism or someone better come up with another industry to employ, if I'm not mistaken, almost, if not over 20,000 of our local people. And I want to share with you, Mr. Chair, in these efforts and the documents that I sent over to you. I really appreciate you working closely with me, and again, thank the good author for having bipartisan support on this effort. And as I see some of the key players that were here in the former administration, and of course, our good colleague, former Senator Dennis Rodriguez, who was the main author of the legislation. I think that this is key. I know that the Chamber Commerce, the Guam Chamber of Commerce has wrote in support, but more importantly, I think this is a win-win to bring back the biggest industry to our community. And I will note for the record, Mr. Chair, after saying all that, I found out that YouTube is down, so I don't know, we're going to need to take a couple of minutes to reboot, but I hope that everything was recorded on this effort, Mr. Chair. So maybe if you can check, I just got a note passed to me that our YouTube is down. But do want to thank everybody for being here, my colleagues, the government.
AV is our live feed off of YouTube right now.
Yes, and we're not sure when it's going to come back on. So we're still broadcasting on GT and Docomo.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I truly appreciate you giving me the time to add to this very good bill. And I hope that my colleagues will help support this effort, as I noted earlier, too, of the main prime sponsor in the previous term that introduced it is here, and also the former governor, and I see a lot of the stakeholders on board. So thank you, and we hope that we can get positive resolution and support for this measure.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Okay, next is Melanie Mendiola, Administrator, Guam Economic Development Authority.
Hafa-day, good afternoon, everyone. Hafa-day, good afternoon, Senator Ridgell, Mr. Chair, and members of the Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Power, and Energy Utilities, and the Arts. And I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Bill 66-36. GIDA supports the bill and appreciates the efforts being undertaken to extend the application period of the Special Hotel Qualifying Certificate, the QC program. The current sunset date for the Special Hotel QC is December 31, 2021. Because of this, GIDA solicited input from stakeholders, as well as the administration, to draft recommendations to enhance the program to respond to current economic conditions. These recommendations are articulated as follows. Number one, further extend the proposed program sunset date from December 31, 2024 to December 31, 2031. Create a specific tax benefit to encourage existing hotels to either make substantial improvements and renovations or expand their property. This incentive will equal to 20% of eligible investment costs. New hotel construction will still be eligible for a tax benefit equal to 10% of eligible investment costs. And technical amendments to clarify the validity of appraisals and when applications for renovation of expansion of existing hotels can be accepted. GIDA has been in communications with the co-sponsor Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes' office on the proposed recommendations and a prepared language for the same. GIDA stands ready to work with the bill's sponsors on the committee in making improvements to Bill 66 as it moves through the legislative process. We thank you for your time and attention. And if you have any questions, I will be here standing by. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mel. Next, Governor Eddie Calvo.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I can. But if you could, your audio is on now, but your video is off.
Okay, let me get work on that. Sorry about that.
There you go. You're good. Now, if you could just unmute the audio.
How's that, Mr. Chair?
There you go. You're good to go,
Okay.
Governor.
Thank you so much. Medicine Hoffaday, again, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank the sponsors of the bill, Senator Moylan and Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes. Again, thank you, Senator Moylan, for contacting me the other day to see if I could add my input into this particular bill. And thank you for allowing me this opportunity. When this legislation was put on my desk several years ago, we were in the midst of a boom. And the problem was that we didn't have enough hotel rooms available for the growing demand. So this legislation was enacted, had my full endorsement, still has my endorsement. And we were moving along fairly well. In fact, we have one hotel, the Sabaki Tower, that again was enticed for construction as a result of this measure. The problem was that after we had this enacted, that's when during the Obama administration, they had this complete reversal on the H-2B visa requirements. And if you can recall, we went from about close to 2,000 H-2 workers to 0. So we had the interest. There was a whole bunch of investors that were looking forward to building in Guam. The problem was we didn't have any construction workers. And then, of course, as you all know, we've had this problem with the COVID, and we have a lot of hotels now that have been dormant for quite some time. And with that, I would assume some of these hotels have a situation where they're going to need a lot of work. And that's not only on renovations, but hopefully expansion. I, in the private sector, now see a lot of interest, particularly for places such as Korea and Taiwan, for investment into our island, particularly into tourism services industry. Again, one of the problems is, of course, is this COVID crisis. And we do believe that we've hit the corner on it. But the other problem, and I think this is something to consider why this is so important for an extension, is that we still have some problems with H-2B. And more recently, this interpretation that I'm seeing coming out of Washington gives a little bit too much more leeway on discretion to Homeland Security in regards to what would be considered falling within the classification of H-2B worker requirements, and particularly to types of projects. So I'm a little bit concerned because if you can recall Mayorkas, or the Homeland Security chief now, well, he was in charge when this whole mess started back when they reinterpreted and cut out our H-2B workers, which leads me to again, a closing point. We're at $200 a square foot right now in Guam for construction. If there's a little bit of a concern in what I'm seeing with the feds, that things may tighten up, even though we had a little bit more flexibility for a short period. And if that occurs, then you're going to start seeing, again, inflationary issues when it comes to construction costs. And it's not just material, but it will be personnel as well. So it will be a little bit more difficult in terms of cost-wise to construct hotels, renovate hotel rooms, and then at the same time being able to offer these rooms at a certain affordable price to tourists. So anywhere we can find ways to cut costs, and I mean like government costs such as taxes, then I think that's the right way to do it. And right now, because we're in a lull, we have practically zero occupancy. Now's the time that if we're going to do some construction, now's the time to do it. So, Mr. Chair, and to all my former colleagues there in the public sector, I'm endorsing this bill, and I look forward to its passage. And that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Governor Calvo, for your testimony. Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hoffaday, good afternoon. Good afternoon to the senators and to everyone here. Governor Calvo, nice seeing you. I want to thank Senator Moylan for reaching out and asking me to provide testimony. And first off, I want to just state for the record that I support this legislation. I support his efforts and Senator Barnes's efforts to extend the opportunity for investors to take advantage of this tool. Just a little bit of history. Time flies. I can't believe it's been 7 years since we passed this. But when we did pass this, we worked very closely with Governor Calvo's administration, and this was really in line with the Vision 2020. And the governor had mentioned it about how tourism was really busting in the seams, and there was a very good foresight and vision that this was really going to be something that we really needed to address in getting more hotel rooms here. And so, I wholeheartedly support this effort to get more hotel rooms long term. I think what has happened during the pandemic has really, gave everyone the opportunity to kind of step back and say, okay, not only do we need this long term, but for the short term, I think we got to be able to address the needs and the concerns that we have today. And so I'm happy that Senator Barnes had mentioned that they're working on expanding the amendment to this law, because that's one thing I wanted to suggest is that for Mr. Chair and the sponsors to take a look at allowing this opportunity for existing hotel owners and the existing businesses now to take advantage of. And I know that on the existing law, we give them the opportunity to have this rebate or abatement of taxes, and there's like 50% that you can take from your BPT and the remaining from the other type of taxes. Those are things too that I would suggest you take a look at, because when you talk about BPT, these hotels right now are not making anything. There's aside from the staycations from the local residents, they're really hurting. And so, I would recommend, Mr. Chair, that, that also be looked at. I know that as part of our effort to reform our QC program, it was to ensure that we have measurable goals in place. And this was really the example of that, is that, we didn't have an open-ended QC program that, for any industry, you will get 100% abatement or rebate for anything, just for even spending a minimal amount of investment. With this, we ensure that, there was a specific investment, and part of that, you're able to now take this abatement or rebate. And so the existing law now, I believe we say 10% of the total construction costs. That may be something you want to take a look at in your discussion with stakeholders, because this pandemic has really taken a toll on a lot of people. And also, as the others had mentioned, you have other destinations that are being very aggressive in luring investors to come there, because we're all in the same situation. And so, I'm hoping that, again, that it's something that you look at expanding, not just the sunset provision, but expanding the actual language in this existing law to ensure that we really get as they say, the bang for our buck here. So again, I support it. I want to thank Senator Moylan for his efforts on this, and for Senator Barnes for really taking a look at and catching this, because this is something that could have just been that could have lapsed after December of this year, and we wouldn't have this tool. And it's a very important tool to have, especially during these times. So thank you very much, Senator, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Rodriguez, for your testimony. I do have, I know Ed Camacho was on earlier, but I don't see if he's been able to log back on yet. Or there he is. All right.
She put me into her office, Senator Chairman.
There you go. Go ahead, Mr. Camacho, if you have testimony.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to recap some of what was said. Hello, Governor Calvo and board members, Senator. When this program first launched back in 2015, we had interest of over 2,500 rooms. we were trying to limit it because the bill really calls for 1,600 new hotel rooms, but the interest was there. We were out there trying to expand it through all our trade missions and even through local investments to build up the inventory that was required. What happened? The first thing that happened was the H-2B crisis, that which knocked a lot of these letters of interest we had and a QC that we also issued out to delay their project. And then as that happened, then the COVID hit again. COVID hit. So of this 2,500 room interest we had, only one hotel was built, Sabaki Hotel, totaling 340 rooms at an investment of 160 million. And we reached out to the various industry players out there to find out what would be better suitable for them. First and foremost, the 3-year term to expand. They asked for something a little longer because it's going to take 3 years before this tourism industry really recovers, if it does recover within 3 years. And trying to make an investment within 3 years might be a little challenging, although it's a golden opportunity while there's no tourists here to close down your property and maybe expand or renovate. The other thing was the 10% we offered up that was offered in the bill, in the QC program for the eligible investment wasn't significant enough for any developer to expand on their property. That's why no one took advantage of the modification aspect of the special hotel QC. So industry asked us to increase that, so they thought 20% might be a better enticement. We said, okay, we'll put that in a draft bill. We'll see what happens, and we'll go before the legislature to see if whether we can extend the sunset provision by 10 years, and only for renovation expenses increase the benefit from 10% of eligible expenses to 20%. And other than that, there's just some minor cleanups on the bill that we need to make in terms of, on the renovation aspect. When you submit your appraisal report, you had people businesses wanting to submit a 5-year appraisal report or a 3-year. We had to fine tune that because the initial legislation didn't determine how long, or didn't say how long the appraisal report how current it should be. So we reached out, and 6 months was the adequate period. So that, in a nutshell, is what transpired with this recommendation to add to Bill 66, but also a little historical information on the interest we had since 2015, building up to now we only have one QC on the book. 2 QCs, but one of them for the special hotel QC is going through a mutual revocation. They're just not moving forward on it. So the industry is being challenged prior to COVID, and now with COVID, it's just going to drag it out a little longer. That's all I wanted to say on this.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho, for your testimony. If I don't see anyone else on the sign-in sheet, but if there is anyone else here that's here to testify on behalf of the bill, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. From the Guam Chamber of Commerce, Catherine Castro, I apologize. President, Guam Chamber of Commerce, Catherine Castro, please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, Hafaday Chairman Ridgell and committee members. I did provide written testimony. I'm going to read it for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to submit our comments on Bill number 66-36. The Guam Chamber of Commerce wholeheartedly supports this measure, just as we supported the original legislation, which became Public Law 32-233 a few years ago. We are optimistic that our island slowly recovers from this pandemic. We will someday soon be able to return to the visitor arrivals we experienced in 2019. The road to recovery will be a long one. However, now is the time for us to roll up our sleeves and work cooperatively as a community toward developing our island as a premier destination. This means sprucing up our facilities and infrastructure, as well as planning for hotel development and upgrades. There are ongoing discussions with investors looking at either renovations of existing hotels with an expansion of their hotel room inventory or new resort developments. This process does not materialize overnight. Therefore, it is vital to extend the deadline of the program pursuant to Public Law 32-233 to assure that there are incentives in place to attract such investments. While it is unfortunate that the objectives outlined in the Special Qualifying Certificate program, they were not achieved in the allotted 5-year timeframe under the law, we understand that there have been many challenges, as we've mentioned during this public hearing, with attaining the much needed manpower to construct new hotel rooms during this time. As we are all well aware, Guam continues to experience a skilled construction workforce challenge for private and public construction projects, which we hope to see resolved with the support of the recent passing of the FY 2021 NDAA and the cooperation of USCIS. The current global pandemic has only exacerbated the workforce shortage situation with closed borders as the entire world manages COVID-19 outbreaks in their respective countries. As Guam and the rest of the world struggles to recover, acting to further extend the sunset provision of the Special Qualifying Certificate will provide much needed incentives for investors to consider Guam as a good choice to establish, foster, and grow their investment. Any new development or renovation spearheaded by this Special Qualifying Certificate would result in the creation of new jobs and other forms of economic activity. We appreciate the work of the Guam Economic Development Authority and its efforts to attract investment to Guam. With your help in passing this measure into law, we are optimistic that as we move forward into recovery, GIDA's efforts will be fruitful and that investors will see the value of bringing their investments to our shores. Understanding that the road to economic recovery will go beyond 2021, extending the special QC sunset provision would be a much welcome necessity for our island. We encourage you, your committee members, and all of the 36 Guam legislature to support Bill 66-36. We would like to extend our appreciation to the authors of the measure for its introduction and support of the economic potential this provision will have on our island and the quality of life for all our residents. We appreciate your consideration of our support of the passage of this bill. And as always, the Chamber is open to a discussion on this and other pieces of legislation. Sizus Mosi.
Thank you for your testimony. All right, now that we've exhausted the list of those who've signed up to testify on the measure, I will allow my colleagues opportunity to ask questions of members of the panel or make comments, beginning with Vice Speaker Tina Muña Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions or comments at this time. I remain supportive of the measure and want to see opportunity so that our tourism can come back to its full success as it was prior to the COVID. Sana Mosi.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Senator Sabina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the panel that are here today to provide testimony. Yes, I'm very interested in this, as this particular expanding, at least delaying the sunset date for qualifying certificates for renovations. I think, yeah, like Governor Calvo said, now is the time to renovate while there is very little occupancy in hotels. I think what I'm interested too, maybe this is a question for Director Mendiola regarding using this QC for upgrades to hotels in regards to energy efficiency and water conservation measures. Can this be utilized for that as well?
Thank you, Senator. That's a wonderful question. And I think it's right in line with the governor's G3 initiatives to build more sustainable industries on our island. When the application process occurs, the prospective applicant has to submit something similar to a business plan. And in the business plan, they articulate what their renovation plans are. So something that would not be acceptable would be saying that they want to spend 20% of the appraised value on new curtains. But something that would be great would be if they said they're going to spend this amount on a number of different types of renovations. And that is where our team then goes into the application and to what they are planning to validate the numbers that to validate the numbers that they're sharing. Is it to improve the tourist experience? Is it to improve the visitor experience? So one thing GVB has said over the years is it's important to improve our product, not just have the rooms available, but have really high quality rooms available and high quality accommodations. And then secondly, to make our hotels more efficient as far as some of the top users of water are our hotel properties, fuel, producers of trash and waste are our hotel properties. So we that would absolutely be taken into consideration, is the ability to modify their operations and include those activities in a renovation, so that for the long term, it results in a more superior product, or a better product for the island.
Okay, thank you for that response. So, I mean, that's interesting. You brought up also waste disposal. And one of the things that I would like to promote is more the recycling, composting ability. And, you know, food waste is it's a large portion of our waste stream, which that can be diverted. I think it could be more, it's one of the lower hanging fruits when we talk about diversion from the waste stream. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We could work with the applicant such that they can articulate that. So for example, we would not pay for their waste management services for the next 10 or 15 years, or for the duration of the QC. That is not appropriate. But to retrofit wherever it is that they're sorting garbage, that would be considered a renovation to the property. That would be taken into account as far as the amount they'd spend to engage in such an activity.
That's great to hear. The other thing that is of interest to me is also, you know, ramps for people with disabilities, and I guess improving the site for access to more of the elderly population. Can that also be funded through, or can the QC be utilized for those type of improvements?
Yes, for a brand new QC, that's a given, because it's going to be in their occupancy permit requirements, I would imagine, or the building permit requirements. But for any properties that maybe have been grandfathered somehow into a system, then the ability to meet these requirements would be taken into consideration as well, as far as a renovation cost.
Okay, great. Thank you for those responses. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Sabina. Senator Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good discussion, and I don't have any questions. I just want to comment that it's reassuring that there is still interest in development in Guam, and any sort of incentives that GITA can promote or extend, you know, will certainly go very far in securing those types of investment interests into Guam. So I look forward to supporting this bill when it goes before the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Titagui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for those who testified today. I'd like to also especially thank former Senator Rodriguez, Dennis Rodriguez, for his foresight, and it's as simple as extending something that he had introduced several years ago. And I think it's justly needed. With the amendments, of course, with GITA, I think it makes total sense, you know, since we're going through the pandemic right now, to increase the deadline, not what's been stated on this proposed legislation, but to push it to 2031. It makes complete sense to move forward that way. And I greatly appreciate Melanie answering the question of Senator Perez with regards to that, because it is something that we need to look forward to entice individuals to go into that direction of you know, conservation and energy reliant, self-sustaining opportunities for our community. So thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and And thank you to Governor Calvo, who had also the foresight in signing this legislation from Senator Rodriguez into law. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tadegui. Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate everyone that came to testify, and certainly a pleasure to see Senator Rodriguez and certainly our see Governor Calvo and provide his testimony. I really don't have anything to add to the discussion. I certainly look forward to seeing as well what we can do to stimulate our visitor industry as we work towards getting back to some sense of normalcy and rebuilding our economy. With that, I'll conclude my comments. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Moylan.
Yeah, no further comments there, Mr. Chair. If you wish for me to close or anything else, I'll be happy to.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the panel, and special thank you to Senator Dennis Rodriguez. Thank you for taking the time out and further explaining the history of this bill. We're glad to see it move forward, and special thanks also to Governor Calvo as well, and to Gita for putting together and making this helpful for our island to get back on our economy feet. So looking forward to, Mr. Chairman, this moving forward to session floor and helping our island build back our economy. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 906 at the DNA building in Hagåtña. You may also send your statements to us at Ridgell at guamlegislature.org. That's CLYNTRIDGELL at guamlegislature.org. Or you can send it by fax to 475-4768. Thank you all for your participation. This virtual public hearing is now adjourned at 1:44 p.m. Thank you.
Adios.